I was watching myself become the person that I always said I didn't wanna be.
If you wanna see a different behavior around you or from people that you interact with, it can start by just modeling it yourself.
I no longer am going to tolerate what has always been.
It adds a level of strength and resolve to us as well,
Right.
and it teaches us about ourselves.
At the end of the day, I'm my own hero in this
Mm.
story, right?
Amen to that.
And welcome to Love Always Self. I'm Shyra.
Hi, y'all. I'm Karista, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Love Always Self. Hello
Hi.
and welcome. For those of you on audio, we're actually in separate spaces today. So, this is a little bit different than we're used to. For those on video on YouTube, you can see we're in separate spaces.
We had to go remote with this recording today.
It was a little bit of a struggle getting this going. We kind of forgot because it's been like 6 months since we've had to record like this.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting last hour trying to get all of this reset back up and get acclimated again back to how we did these things back
Yeah.
a year ago.
Yeah, no kidding. I was like, oh yeah, I need headphones. Oh yeah, I need a mic. Oh yeah, my lighting is like all dim and moody because this is where I work, so I'm all like zen and yeah, that's not great for recording videos. So it took
Tell
me
me
a
really,
minute.
are you zen when you work?
Absolutely not, especially not lately.
Oh, there's the truth, guys. Oh,
No.
so we decided to record like this today because my spouse is actually sick and he
So
is
was mine.
quarantined right now, and we didn't wanna pass any unwanted germs back and forth because sharing sometimes is a little too much.
Sometimes sharing is not caring.
Exactly, exactly. So that is why we chose to do this today. But man, I tell you, when somebody gets sick in the household, it really just throws off, I don't know, all the routines.
Yeah, it does. It throws off everything. The vibe of your space changes too
Mhm.
because, I mean, I'll be honest, when I'm sick, now specifically with sore throats. If I have a sore throat, I'm a whole other person. I'm the biggest baby you've ever met. That is the one thing that'll like completely put me on my ass. So that one, yeah. Now what's interesting is, like, the spousal differences, right? Like, I notice, like, when my husband's sick, he wants space, and I think you're like that too.
I am.
I just wanna be left alone, I wanna cuddle up in a little corner with a lot of blankets and a hoodie or something, God, I miss teddy bears. And, we have dogs now, so hey, that works. You know, and I just wanna, like, be by myself and do my own thing and be solo. Me, I'm actually the exact opposite of that.
Mhm.
I want to cuddle with somebody, which is part of that sharing is not caring process, right? I wanna cuddle up with somebody. I wanna, like, feel loved. I need more, more, more love. It's, like, terrible thought to do that to somebody when you're sick, but that's how I
But
am.
it's a balance too because our needs shift,
Yeah.
in when we're not feeling well. And so it's just recognizing our differences and honoring them and trying to be the best partners that we can be to the other person when they're needing what they need. So, unfortunately, my spouse is very much like you. So, John loves being around people, and so I kicked him into his office a few days ago, and
Poor
to
thing.
to keep myself well. And bless his
Yeah.
heart, he's bored out of his mind. But it's only a couple of days, guys. Like sometimes, as an adult, you have to do things you don't want to do, just because that's the best course of action. And so, it's not a forever thing.
Yeah, it's not forever, and that's the good news is that as
Mhm.
long as we get to a place of feeling better and not being spready of what we've got going on,
Spreading.
then, you know, little
Yeah, and
peanut
it's
butter
not like I'm
spread.
not taking care of him, so still taking him meds and food and making sure he has water and,
Yeah.
just I'm not the entertainment.
I am not here to entertain versus I am you not entertained?
So it's been a little bit tiring this week. I know your spouse has been recovering as well,
Yeah.
Shira. So it's just it's been a little bit of unrest, I think, at both of our homes this
Yeah,
past week.
it has, for sure. It's been unrest, not even just with that, like, let's tell the truth of the matter, like, I
Life is
honestly
happening,
yeah,
and it's freaking nuts.
it's freaking nuts, and I definitely am feeling very spread thin. Um, you know, we talk about all the things that you can do to maintain your self-care, and we promote that, and sometimes because we're human, we also forget to practice that ourselves, right? And so that's why I'm always saying, like, give yourself a little grace when you decide that I'm not gonna partake in any of those spiritual practices. Just know that
Mm,
you have tools,
right.
And I have to remind myself. I was having this conversation earlier today actually, talking about the overload, with some peers. And we were going through like, I mentioned to them, I said, well, one of them had said to me, I think it's really great that you take a step back and you meditate. And I was like, those last 5 minutes, because there's a constant ding in the background that I can't get rid of with Slack, but, like, honestly, if I didn't, I would probably be worse off than I already am, and that's not that great on a
Mhm,
day-to-day basis, right? So I have this mindset currently where I remember what it was like to be in fight or flight to the point that I was sick and I was actually fighting for my life. And I don't want to go back there. And so I acknowledge that every day that I feel that anxiety building up in me, that my body is in that response and
mhm.
I have to do something about it. So I have decided to sign myself up with a therapist, and
Yay.
you guys might actually know who she is because she's been on our podcast before. But her name is Barbara, and she did my past life regression. And I never went back to her to tell her what happened after that because literally 3 weeks later was when I was diagnosed.
Mhm.
So,
If you guys haven't heard those stories, about your diagnosis, Shira, or both of our past life regressions, they are available, I wanna say maybe from 2021. So if
yeah,
anybody wants to go back, I will
no.
link those below as well. Very fascinating stories.
Wow, was that 2021?
I think so.
Gold Blues.
Well, I
Okay.
think yours was in 2021, mine may have been 2022.
Interesting. No, it had to be 2020. Because my diagnosis was my 40th,
I
right
don't
before
remember, guys.
my 40th birthday,
I
yeah.
will link them below so you don't
Yeah.
have to go searching for them, but,
And I
they're
revealed
wild
my age.
stories. We allude to it.
We
It's
alluded
fine.
to it
You
before,
know,
damn
it's
it.
our own, like, thought process about age anyways. It's not I we put too much significance in it, I think, but that's
Well,
just my opinion.
I don't think I look it except for some days when I get off work and then I'm like, "Oh my god, I look my" But today I think I'm nailing this, you know?
Mhm, mhm.
Anyway. So, yeah, I honestly, like, I have come to realize and Carrie and I have talked about this. There's been times where we are trying to determine where we can release the stretching of the rubber band, so to speak. This podcast is extremely important to us, and it's important to us to spread the information that we spread and like help others achieve their goals in life and become healthier, more self aware in order to achieve their self love and their love within. Because it's been such a profound journey for us and has made such a profound impact on us and our relationships and how we
Mhm.
go about our days. But, like she said, sometimes we have these brick wall moments where we're like, can't possibly squeeze one more thing in. I
I would Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Um, that is one of the cons to working like this where we're in separate
Yeah.
spaces.
No body
But
language to read
yeah,
beforehand, yeah.
right, right. But to clarify our spiritual journey, honestly, like, and it almost made it sound like we reached that point, but in reality, it's an ongoing journey of spirituality. And there's ebbs and flows in how we practice, when we practice, what we practice. And so it's a constant growth process, and there's no end to it.
Yeah, no, there is no end to it. Hopefully, just in a relatable sense, like,
Hmm.
we are doing what we're doing because we care,
Hmm.
and that care and that love expands beyond us, and that's the point of what we've been doing and why we've started this in the first place, is that we started doing our own self-care practices and self-love journey, and we were like, "Holy shit, like, more people should know this." And I know that there's so many channels that you can go to. There's so many people out there that are sharing their own journeys. We all have unique experiences, and we will all continue to have unique experiences even well after we're in these physical bodies. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And so my point is that, I've been toiling around in my head, like, on whether or not we put a hold on certain things, on how much we are expanding on our little rubber band. And so that's just the truth of it, because where you fill up your basket, if it becomes overflowing, you have to start taking some things out, you know? And that's just the truth of it. But
Mhm, mhm. We're not saying anything yet.
right. No. Yeah.
But,
Sorry.
it's not to freak you guys out, but it's definitely been like, where can we give a little? Like, where can we let go a little bit? And we've talked a lot about letting go, and sometimes we have to seriously, like, take a moment and evaluate our priorities in life and
Yeah.
what we want to hold on to, what we can't let go of, and what is in that maybe yes, maybe no pile. I'm thinking of when I go clothes shopping, I put like the yeses and the nos and then the maybe pile. Like it's kind of like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I'll pick one thing out of there to keep and one thing to let go. And so it's just that it's a constant reevaluation process of where can we give a little bit so we can receive a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And, you know, from my experience thus far, and I'm not the all wise knowing over here, so take it for what it's worth. But from my experience, it's been a challenge to juggle too much, but it's also been one of my favorite things that I've done lately, which
It
is wild.
definitely like, it adds a level of strength and resolve to us as well,
Right.
and it teaches us about ourselves, our level of determination, our willingness and readiness to do these things, whether it's, our regular day-to-day job, being around our spouses, being around each other, doing this podcast, working on staging and home design or home decor. Like, it's fun, but it can also be a lot. And you're right. If you have too many balls, they're gonna fall if you're
Yeah.
juggling them.
Absolutely. I recently started watching this YouTube channel called Diary of a CEO, and it's fascinating. It's this guy named Steven, and he's one of what's the show called? It's like a Shark Tank, but in Britain.
Mhm.
It's like the British Shark Tank or something, English Shark Tank? I can't remember. Anyway, so he's fascinating, and he came up all on his own and built his own empire basically, and wealth. But honestly, listening to his story and like how he manages, because he's managing so many businesses. Now, granted, that man's got like an entire company that helps him with that, right? Like an
He's got a
entire
team.
team. Right, right.
He can
And
delegate.
he can totally delegate. But in his episodes, he shows you his calendar, like, it actually scrolls through his calendar, on what he's gonna be where he's gonna be at next, so you'll cut to that clip or whatever. But I see his calendar, and I noticed that every time he shared his calendar, that there was a period of time, at the start and at the end where there's nothing booked. And I'm, like, thinking to myself, like, you watch this guy, like, "I'm getting on a bus, I'm getting on a bike, I'm getting on a train, I'm getting on a flight, like, I'm going from this event to this event," and, like, all these, like, crazy meeting schedules and, like, way more intense than even what I'm dealing with, and I'm like, "How the when do you sleep?" And he talked about it on his most recent episode. He talked about how, uh it's interesting to me that everyone assumes that I never sleep because of my schedule, and they see that calendar on my episodes. He goes, "But that's actually the one thing that I take the most priority in is sleep."
Mm.
Because he actually bought one of the companies that does a sleep study, and they built their own, like, watch and everything for it. And when he came to realize how his lack of sleep was impacting his health, he decided to prioritize that. And so he's like, "I actually don't even set an alarm clock
Oh,
because"
that sounds amazing.
right? He was like, because I think it was like 9 PM or 10 PM, and he's like, "I don't take any meetings before 10 AM." I was like, "What?" And then I started thinking about my own life, right? Like, I pretty much work California hours and living in Texas, and I could do that if I decided to make the time to go to bed earlier. I could set that standard for myself to get the amount of sleep that I need to, like, feel better and have more energy and feel more productive and have more creativity. Um
I think sleep is a lot more important than we've realized in the past
mhm.
or that, we've allowed ourselves to believe. You know that saying that, "Oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead." Like,
Oh,
I
boy.
remember saying that all in my 20s, like, "Okay, just, you know, mind to the grinder," kinda thing. Like, you're just going forward, you're working as hard as you can, trying to, make moves or whatever. "I'll sleep when I die." And it's just like, you will die earlier if you don't sleep enough hours.
I was gonna say, I was like, the way I've been feeling lately, I was like, if I don't sleep soon, I am gonna be.
Like, I can see it working in as a nurse, like, I can tell when somebody hasn't been sleeping well or didn't get a good night's rest, it shows in their blood pressure reading, like, there is an elevated blood pressure reading,
Oh, that's
and
fascinating.
so it absolutely affects cardiac health.
No, that makes sense.
Mhm, and the
I know.
quality of it, not just the amount, but the quality of it is also important, so if you're not breathing well and getting enough oxygen while you're sleeping, you're not gonna be well rested, and it's gonna affect your heart.
One of the first questions that popped in my head that I could totally hear somebody in the audience thinking, right? Because I'm probably thinking it, but was, well, what if you can't seem to get your brain to turn off? Like, and you have like insomnia and things like that, right? Um, I go through these spells myself. Carrie knows about them. It's very impactful when it happens. I'm way more emotional. Um, as if menopause didn't help with that. But like, it's kind of one of those things where for me, I've learned, and it's more recent, to be honest, but I've learned that I have to turn my devices off a lot sooner than I thought. And then I have to find something that makes me sleepy. So br- I've said this 100 times. I'm going to say it again because it's so true. If you find somebody that has a very calming voice and you go listen to them, just put your earbuds in. Don't watch the screen, right? You don't need to watch it. You just listen like an audiobook or whatever. And you put that in your headphones and you listen to somebody with like this very soothing voice. Like I will purposefully go, I won't listen to the audiobooks that have like the high pitch kind of tone to
Mhm.
it when they're reading. I purposely look for ones that have that deep, that deep, very white kind of voice going on. And man, every time. And then another tip, try this. I don't know why it works the way it works. I don't understand it. Science, nature, whatever. But castor oil. I started rubbing, hey, by the way, I'm not a doctor, so go talk to your doctor about all this. But um castor oil. I started rubbing it on my belly and then doing like a pure 100% pure cotton cloth or wrap that straps on that's really soft and stuff. You can find them on Amazon. I sleep so hard. Like, and it's not like that, "Oh, I'm gonna be super drowsy in the morning and wake up with that, lag or whatever." Not at all. I just wake up and I feel so much more refreshed, and it is the best thing I've ever discovered in my life, and I was like, "Is it just me? Is this weird?" And so I had my husband try it, and he slept so good, and he's like, "What's going on with this?" I was like, "I don't know."
I have no idea. I don't understand the science behind it. I don't know if it's been studied like that before,
I thought
but
it was supposed to help with, like, digestion. I mean, I guess it is, but, like,
I
instead it's giving me sleep.
yeah, I don't know. I'd have to read more on it, but I think there is, a point to your own experiential like process and what you experience with it because, you know, we've talked about this in the past as well, like the placebo effect. If you believe it, then your body's more likely to align to that belief anyways.
Yep,
So even if science
absolutely.
can't necessarily prove it, although they've proven about the placebo effect. So I don't know. We're not making any promises here whatsoever. Um, but yeah, sleep is very important. I know for me, I definitely turn my devices off. Like they go on silent at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And I usually stop watching TV between 9 and 9:30, and I'll read a book. Like lately, I've been reading books on my phone, but I turn the brightness all the way down. I've got the dimmer on, so like the blue light filter. But the other half of the time, I'm just reading paper books, and I get sleepy enough reading those that I can fall asleep pretty quick. But I think also having that routine, so that's another suggestion that I would say is that actually setting, a schedule and sticking that to that routine for several weeks, like doing it for 3 weeks before you decide that it's not working anymore. Because it takes about 3 weeks for us to make a new habit.
I agree.
And I think our body, it takes time to regulate to changes that we make, whether it's diet, whether it's exercise, or whether it's sleep. I think it takes time. So, guys, another practice in patience and persistence here. Like, just test it out, give it a shot, stick with it for 3 weeks, and then reevaluate how it's working.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good idea. I was thinking to myself just now while you were talking about that, I had recently watched this basically like comeback video of Vanessa Lau. She's a pretty popular YouTuber, and she was talking about why she quit YouTube, and because she's been on a hiatus for like a year.
Mm,
And I was watching how she seemed so much more different than she was when right before she signed off, and said that she was going to, step away. And she talked a lot about, the self-care activities, the spending more time outdoors, the spending more time with loved ones and family members, and acknowledging her self-love, which is not something she felt before. She felt too like she had to compare herself against everybody else.
mm.
And that was something that kind of hit home with me because I remember being like that quite a bit, in my younger days. I don't think that I'm much like that anymore, to be honest with you. Like that's something that I'm kind of like, I like my identity. And she's gonna hang out
I
for a
think
minute.
that's a
But
blessing as you get older. Like,
yeah,
not always, not for
your fucking bucket
everybody.
gets real bigger.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I used to compare a lot, especially through, like, school, whether it was middle school, high school, college, but you're right, that bucket, it does get bigger, and I
Yeah.
don't care as much
Yeah,
about
it's
other
too
people's, like,
exhausting.
I don't know, thoughts on, like, how I should be if I'd rather just be me. I'm happy.
But she had to make a really tough choice. She had to make a
Mm,
really tough choice because she had a crew, like, not as big as the Diary of a CEO guy, but, like, she had a crew and
mhm,
staff and people that relied on her for their income and their livelihood, and so she had to make a really tough call, and she talked about that, but at the end of the day, we have to make a lot of tough calls, and
mhm,
sometimes that toughest call can just be a step forward in being taking better care of ourselves. I know that I struggle with that and I come back to it and I make the smart decision to do the thing that's right for myself, like signing up with a therapist, right? Um, and then there's times where I forget, I get too far into my day-to-day grind and I stop caring for myself, which is wild because it impacts everything. And so, I just wanna, like, say that because I wanna make sure that people understand that we're human, and we give advice because we have our own experiences to give advice, because we've gone through some of these things, and we're still experiencing them, and we're gonna continue to still experiencing them, and then we'll come back and we'll tell you about it, and you can
Yeah.
you can make the decision to take the leap forward and take the solid advice or try it yourself and figure it out.
Mhm,
But I
mhm.
think that the determination factor is always gonna be my number one thing that I will always tell everybody. Are you feeling determined enough to make a change, to do something different than you did before? You know, Sometimes you can wake up in the mornings and and you just go on the grind. Do you mind if I read something that I wrote? I think I read it to you before, but just to our audience,
No, I don't mind.
because that's kinda ironic that I said that, and then this is something I woke up and wrote down. So I'm going to read you guys something I wrote down. So one of my newer yet always recommended by us self-care practices is to write down your thoughts as soon as you wake up. Uh, and so this is one of the ones that I wrote down 4 or 5 days ago. I woke up this morning thinking, how can I make a difference in the world today? More importantly, how can I make a difference in the positive direction to myself that also impacts others in a positive direction? So many of us wake up on what I call the rinse and repeat spin cycle of our daily lives. That is the washing machine tucked away in a room, sometimes a beautiful room that only gets attention here and there. A pattern of what's already been done the day before. But what if? What if there was one small change that could be made today that just made the world we perceive shine a little bit brighter? One small yet always significant change, even if we don't see the immediate impact of instant gratification we have all have come so to expect. What would that look like if perpetuated by all or many? I think of this every time I walk into a door and remember I'm a leader of my own making. So, what does that look like today? Is it giving someone a moment of time, one that begins and ends with a smile? Is it saying something, even a single sentence that can feel empowering or hopeful? Is it taking one more step towards building something that is mostly driven by service to others and not just service to self? If you've even read this all the way through by now, you've already done just that. That in which begins a new journey towards creation of motivation of whatever that looks like. So, yeah.
Nice. Tell me more about, like, what your evaluation of that, um, journal entry was. Like, how did you feel afterwards?
So I remember when I woke up, I was going through the thoughts of the team that I was supporting that day.
Mm.
And I remembered the night before leaving feeling exasperated and my team feeling drained and everyone kind of feeling like they were on E. And, and I remember that I'm their leader. And sometimes the emotions of your leader and how you're performing and how you feel, even if you don't say it out loud, can still carry weight towards others because we're still energetic beings and it doesn't matter how close in proximity you are. That vibration can carry. And so that was kind of my thought process that morning was like, you know what? I no longer am going to tolerate what has always been. I want to change it in some way possible. There are things that I can control and there are things that I can't control. When you work for the powers to be and it's not of your own making, then sometimes you just make something. And that's all I can do in those moments. And so if those moments of me creating is bringing about some laughter, changing an image on a WebEx to make people laugh as soon as they join, which is what I did. And it's got really good reviews. And it starts off the calls a little bit better, even though if the topics aren't so great, you know?
Mhm. I think
Um,
that's a really, like, beautiful thought, like,
yeah,
just and you don't necessarily have to be in a leadership role to lead in this way,
exactly.
and I like the awareness of that, if you wanna see a different behavior around you or from people that you interact with, it can start by just modeling it yourself,
Absolutely, it can. And
because then it draws that that energy forward in other people, and other people can choose to align with it.
And that was probably the reason why I brought up Vanessa Lau and her story was just because I related to it in a way where I was watching myself from the times that I would perceive it that way. I was watching myself become the person that I always said I didn't wanna be.
Mm,
And even though it wasn't, like, all the way there, I wasn't all the way to that person I don't wanna be, I'm still seeing some of these small, like, steps towards that. Like, if I have to say to myself, "Oh my god, I used to be so much more fun," or and I liked that part about me, and I'm, like, missing it somehow, like, I miss that aspect of me, what is stopping me from just being silly and being the person that I liked being in the first place? Nothing. The only person holding back is me. I'm
mhm.
holding myself back, right? Now, does it come with your challenges? Yes, of course it comes with challenges, like, hey, welcome to the world and planet we live on. But we can still control a majority of it, right? We still have our own power
Choice.
within and
Mhm.
choice. Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
Nice.
Oh, it moves. That's cool. Sorry.
I saw that too.
Yay.
Discoveries.
Yay, AI. AI devices. Woo.
Ah.
So
I just recently started working out again. And I
Mhm.
was thinking about that when you were talking about the things that we do to help ourselves. And I took like an 8-month hiatus from that. And I had to think about it for like 3 or 4 months. And I had to consider all my mental or physical barriers that I knew I would allow to get in the way from me, moving my body. And so I had to take some time to really evaluate that. And then it's don't get me wrong, like it wasn't just a flip of a switch. The actions may appear that way because I've been going for several weeks on a regular basis, minus this week because I didn't, in case I got sick for my husband, I didn't want to spread it to any of the older adults at the Y that ended up joining. And I've been going consistently, but every day it's been a struggle to talk myself into it. But once I get there, I love it. Like, I
Yeah.
feel so good afterwards. And I think some of that is recognizing, again, what your goals are. Like, not just like, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds, but I want to feel energized. I want to feel like I can move without restrictions. I wanna feel like I can go on a hike and not be scared that I won't be able to do it. I wanna be able to sleep better at night. I want my blood pressure to improve. Whatever it is, it's making more defined reasons why. Because when you have those days where you don't wanna do the thing of taking care of yourself, it's remembering why you're doing it and the detailed reasons why.
Yeah, those
So that
details
you're
matter.
Mhm, absolutely. So whether it's you wanna live longer to be able to walk your child down the aisle, or you wanna be able to play with your kids, you wanna take your dog for a run, whatever it is that you want out of it, keeping that at the forefront of your mind so that you understand and don't forget why you're doing the things that you are doing to take care of yourself.
I like the thought process of breaking the patterns of all the things that no longer serve us,
Mhm.
and that seems to be my biggest motivator than all. It's like, I can be a certain individual, and I can say and feel a certain way, and that's okay, and I'm not gonna be mad at myself for that. But if I don't like it and I wanna make a change, then I have to be the person that implements that change and not wait for others to implement it for me. And that's kind of a and I think that that's been a really big lesson in my life, like, the reaching out and hoping that it's somebody else that's gonna come in and sorry for my French, but Captain Save a Ho,
Yeah.
and that's And that's
I mean,
just
you already
not
said "fuck it bucket" earlier, so,
it's
you know.
true. It's true. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm my own hero in this
Mm.
story, right?
Amen to that.
I've got my own little cape flying in the back in the wind, like and it's sparkly and it's awesome. And so I'm just gonna fly with it like Superman across the sky because I'm a nerd and I like Superman. So
In my mind,
I
I have, like, iridescent fairy wings with, like,
wa-
talons.
I want a cape and some like basketball shorts and some sneakers. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's go.
I'll take the tutu.
You are watching this dynamic, y'all. You are listening to this dynamic.
Oh, man. Those fantasy books I've been reading are hitting hard right now.
It's the audio for me, y'all.
Oh. Well, thank you guys for listening and hanging out with us today. We did just want to note we're not doing a card reading today.
Nope.
That's not happening. But we will go ahead and, like we did on our last episode, present a couple of uh, happy, loving, restoring faith in humanity stories. So,
Yay.
again, we would love it if you have any in your local area that you run across and you want to share, or you experience have an experience that bolsters that love for connections and for community. If you see something that happens, share it. We want to hear about it. Maybe we'll share it here. I would love
Yeah,
your help on finding these stories.
that'd be great. I do. I would love it if you guys would either send us an email,
Mm,
contact@lovealwaysself.com, or just comment the link down below and share your story and share those stories with us
yeah.
because we want to share it with everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to share my first story here and we're going to take over the screen. So, you guys that are on audio, you can't see this, but this story, super simple, super sweet. I love small acts of kindness like this. So there was a gentleman that lost his wallet and realized it when he was at the grocery store. He ended up having to search all over the place, couldn't find it, was concerned about his safety at home. And lo and behold, a neighbor came by, knocked on his door, and handed him his wallet with everything in it. And so
Oh,
I just think this is such a wonderful, like, small story that it's so simple. And
yeah.
kindness doesn't have to be difficult. Kindness doesn't have to be filled with detail and, you know, just such extreme experiences. It can be just small acts of kindness, opening a door, seeing somebody that's struggling with a package that they're carrying and helping them.
Yeah.
I
That's
love these kinds of
awesome.
stories.
Me too. Me too.
As always, we will link these below, but I am going to share one more story. Okay. So this is from Instagram, and I'm not going to play the whole thing here, but I will link it so you can click on that link and check it out on Instagram. But for those of you who watch the Super Bowl, there were a lot of good ads, some of them not great, but one of them that I noticed was actually a stand up against hate ad.
Yeah.
And I loved that they took the time to put these ads in the Super Bowl lineup of ads. And this, I don't know much about Robert Kraft. I know he's like the owner of the Patriots. I know that there've been stories of some interesting questionable
Mm.
connections. Not the point of this.
Right.
So Robert Kraft ended up contacting the gentleman that wrote the ads, Dr. Clarence Jones, and he was actually the speechwriter and the advisor, or one of the advisors, of Martin Luther King Jr., and helped him write his "I Have a Dream" speech, and I'm sure several other speeches. That's the one that I remember most. But he took the time to write these ads, which were geared towards fighting hate against Jewish people. And I think this is fantastic. I think we can do better. I think this
Mm.
we should be standing up against hate against everybody. whether it's religion, whether it's gender, whether it's skin color or race or social status. I think that it's time to kick hate out the door.
I agree.
It's
It's one of
had
the
Oh, go ahead.
it's the lowest vibration. Fear and hate, it's the lowest vibration you can possibly have. There's nothing good that will come from that.
It's had its heyday
Mhm.
here in the
Goodbye,
past
hate.
several um years. We'll just say years. It's been going on a lot longer, but it feels like there's been like an amplification of hate-driven speech in the past 4 to 8 years. I'm gonna
Wow.
stop sharing. There we go. Sorry. Trying to figure that out. And I think that I am hopeful for, let me put it that way. I am hopeful for the pendulum swinging in the
Yeah,
opposite direction.
yeah.
So I think it's gone far to hate, and I think it's going to shift back. And I think we're eventually going to reach that point where it's more about the love. I
I
do
agree.
have hope for that. And I
And
do have faith in humanity. Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
I'm trying. I'm
No, you
so
can't talk
sorry.
yet. No, you can't
Nope,
talk. Nope.
nope. And you get a mic, and you get a mic.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
Not sorry.
Isn't it? I think that for those of you listening to this podcast, watching this podcast, you're part of that group, right? You're part of that group because why else would you click on love always, comma self? You want to see you want to see the world in a little bit better of a light and yourself in that same light. We're all about growth within because we believe it starts with you. It
Mhm.
starts with you. So if one of us wants to grow and drop the hate and wave at it as it passes us by, as Matthew McConaughey, I believe he would say, like, I know he's pretty and he lives here.
I know where
Um,
he lives.
she's got the scoop, y'all. Sharing is caring, remember?
There's a
We
really
started
big
off that
fence around it.
episode that way. We'll end it that way, you guys. Oh my gosh. If you have been enjoying our content thus far, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe. Notification bells will let you know when we post a new one. We do post twice a month. And follow us on social media. We got YouTube Shorts, Instagram, Facebook, and believe it or not, we're also on TikTok. That one's growing. That's nice. We have a website if you didn't know.
Yes, we do. It's called lovealwaysself.com.
I was like, "Are you gonna read the W's because it's on the screen?"
I actually cut in so you wouldn't.
Thank you so much. See?
And
There
like
we
we said
go.
earlier, you can also send us an email at contact@lovealwaysself.com. So if you have any news stories that you'd like us to share, any small love bits, any caring neighbors, any, small acts or big acts of kindness, whatever is in your world, we'd love for you to share it with ours too. And I agree with you a lot, Shira, about our audience members. I think you guys are carriers of light. And I think that, this is my belief because with our vibration, you have found something within this podcast that you are attracted to.
Oh,
And I think that that's because you are trying to find more love and more light in this world. But I would like to let you know it's within you. It's time to share that.
always has and always will be.
Mhm.
And with that, you guys,
Don't forget to love first
love last.
and love always. Bye, y'all. Hey, listener, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this moment. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and we look forward to our next connection.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to stay notified of new content from Love Always Self. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to discuss, please hit us up on any of our social media platforms linked in the show notes below.
I'm Karista,
And I'm Shyra.
and until next time,
Remember to love first
Love last.
and love always. Love Always Self podcast is meant for entertainment purposes only. We do not make any warranties about the completeness, reliability, and accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. Any action you choose to take upon the information in this podcast is strictly done so at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of our podcast. Any and all medical concerns should be addressed with a licensed healthcare provider, as well as any questions that may be derived from the information discussed in this podcast.